We are by the Shloshet Yemei Hagbalah, and it's an opportunity for us to get ready for Matan Torah. And that's why we asked Rabbi Wein to, one second, and that's why we asked Rabbi Wein, who is here with us, to change and to give the shir today, to actually prepare us, because Rabbi Wein, anyone who's been with Rabbi Wein on the Shavuot programs, historically, he's used to giving shirim all night long in our shul and in the different Shavuot programs. This year, shuls around the world, especially in North America, are closed. We have the zchus, the privilege that it's partially opened in our community, but it's still closed for the majority of us. And that's why it's a tremendous opportunity right now. This year, which is going to be our last year with the Rav right before Shavuot, will be a shir of Hachana, Shloshet Yemei Hagbalah, the 3 days of preparation for Matan Torah. So this is really our shir, that it will prepare us for Shavuot and for Matan Torah in the best way possible. Rabbi, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Rabbi Utiel. One of the highlights of the Yom Tov of Shavuot, according to our custom, is the reading of the Megilat Ruth, the book of Ruth. And there are vital lessons that this Sefer teaches us, as every Sefer in Tanakh. This Sefer was written by Shmuel Hanavi, and on the surface tells us a story. Now, whenever Tanakh tells us a story, it has to be understood on many different levels. So we can understand it simply as the narrative of an event that occurred, family story. But if that would be the case, then it would not be in Tanakh. The reason that it is included is because of the fact it speaks to us, speaks to all generations. And it's up to every generation to extract from the story, so to speak, the lesson that is particular to that time and circumstance and place. Now, it's fairly easy, I think, for us to derive a lesson, because the lesson is one of resilience. The lesson is one of tragedy and of how one rose from tragedy to greatness. And it also teaches us the mysterious ways of heaven, that the ways of heaven never conform to how we would do things. And therefore, when things happen to us, events unpredictable and unknowable, we are always confused because our mindset is that this is what's supposed to happen. We know, and all of a sudden things happen that we don't know and that don't make sense to us. So just for a few minutes, I'll review a few items from the book that speak to me, at least. One of the things that I've learned in all the years of my delivering speeches, drushes, lectures, etc., is that it has to speak to the speaker as well. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So the first lesson that is obvious here is the heroine of our story is Naomi. This woman, she says, Ani Malaya halachti, I left the land of Israel, Malaya, full. Chazal say she had children. Chazal say she was even pregnant then. She has wealth. She has status. She has station. Her husband is one of the leaders of the Jewish people. And for some strange reason, her husband chooses to leave the Jewish people in a moment of crisis. Vayhi rov ba'aretz. There's a hunger, a famine. It's what we would call today an economic downturn. It's not supposed to be. Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Zovas Cholav Vash. Wonderful country, tremendous agricultural produce. Now there's nothing to eat. So people panic. So Elimelech leaves the country and goes to Moab. And he lives in Moab. He goes only temporarily, as many people from Israel have done. But then it says, Vayiyu Sham. The temporary becomes permanent. And his two sons become Moabites. And they marry women of Moab. Naomi has witnessed all of this, and she apparently is helpless. Cannot prevent her sons. She cannot influence her husband. And then tragedy strikes. Elimelech passes away. Machlon and Chilion pass away. She's left alone with the two daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. So a lesser person would collapse under the weight of these tragedies. How can she go on? But there the Tanakh tells us, Ki shomo b'sdei Moav, while she's in Moab, she heard, Ki fokad Hashem, that the Rebbeinu Shalom remembered the land of Israel, and that the economic crisis, so to speak, is past, and that there is food in the country again. And therefore she wants to go home. Her two daughters-in-law accompany her. But she attempts to dissuade them because she knows what awaits them. It's never pleasant to be a newcomer, an alien in a different society. And here there's a question of conversion. And the nature of people is they're not hospitable to strangers. The greatness of Avram Avinu is that he is against the grain, so to speak. Avram is not the usual. Sdom is the usual. The usual is to live in a gated community, right? It's one of the ironies in the United States now that all of those who are for open borders themselves live in gated communities that even other neighbors of theirs can't get into. So Sdom is the usual. Avram Avinu is the unusual. The task of Klal Yisrael throughout the generations is to be the unusual, to swim against human nature, to overcome our base instincts, to have a broader picture of the matter. So she attempts to tell them not to come with her. Al no benosai, please don't come. Ki marli mod bikem. I'm bitter as to what has happened to you. In other words, like your innocent fallout from this. So there are two reactions. It says, Vatishak orpo lachamoso, verus dovko bo. Orpo kisses her mother-in-law goodbye. Now, the Tanakh doesn't tell us what happens to Orpo, but the Medrash does. That Orpo eventually becomes the grandmother or great-grandmother of Goliath Saplishti, the great Goliath who's going to be slain by David, so that Orpo and Ruth meet again, so to speak, generations later on opposite sides. So the Balei Musar say, because it says Vatishak, she kissed her. If one's connection to Naomi, to Judaism, to Torah, is only one of kissing, that's insufficient. Merus dovkobo. You have to cleave to it. In the Hasidic world, the highest form of human behavior was called dveikut. To cleave onto the Rabboni Shalom Kaviyachol, to be attached. So my example is if this computer that I have, this laptop that I'm speaking on. So this laptop works without being attached to the electrical source because it has a battery. But eventually the battery runs out and then the computer won't work anymore. Whereas if I keep the wire in the computer and it's attached to the source, then it's limitless. But that's the difference between kissing and between cleaving, between Vatishak Orpo and Verus Dovkobo. We always have to be attached to Torah. The wire has to always be in it. Part of the experience we've had that all of us can recognize is that for a generation or two generations or maybe even three generations, little Judaism still remains in the family. But there comes a time when the battery runs out. And the only way it remains is if you're plugged in. If somehow you're still attached to the source. And that's what Shavuot is about. Shavuot is the source. Yeah. I've often thought that maybe only a joke, but it's true that the Har Sinai was electricity. Kol ha'omroi mesakolos, sabrokim. Thunder and lightning, it's all electricity, it's all energy. That's how the Torah describes itself. It's the source of all energy. So if you're plugged in, you're plugged in. If you're not plugged in, you're not plugged in. Can't rely on the battery forever. It only works for a certain period of time. So that's a lesson. And Naomi comes back, and the people in town say, Azos Naomi, oh, is this Naomi? So there's a sarcastic tone to it. People are cruel. We remember she was such a fancy lady, and now she's in rags. She was so beautiful, and now she looks haggard. She had wealth and money, and now she's a beggar. So there's a degree of cruelty which we have to recognize exists within human beings. We are happy to see the mighty fall. We're happy to see those who wielded power somehow brought low. And whether that's right or wrong, we can debate. But that it's a fact, I think, is obvious. We see it in our own political life here in Israel. But it's well known that people when we were young and in school, the whole purpose is to somehow show that the teacher made a mistake. That's our joy. So they mock her. And she accepts it. She says, Al tikrenali Naomi. Don't call me Naomi, which is pleasantness. Krenali moro, call me bitterness. Because that's what happens in life. So again, just as in the fields of Moab, so in the fields of Beis Lechem, she could give up. She could say, Zell, that's it. It's enough. But she does not. She concocts a scheme that is so wild, that is so unlikely, that she's going to marry Ruth off to Boaz. Boaz is the prince of Israel. Boaz is a much, much older than Ruth. Ruth is from Moab. There's a whole shaila in halacha, whether you can marry a woman of Moab. The halacha Moab v'lo Moavis, Ammoni v'lo Ammonis was not yet firmly established. But the Ruth to Naomi, it makes sense, yeah. The wildest dreams, which is also part of the Jewish people, which is also the influence of Torah. Torah teaches us that nothing is impossible. That what is a wild dream can be an actuality. But it takes effort, sacrifice, wisdom. Does not happen by itself. So we all know the story. And somehow in the story, there are other stories. The Tanakh makes note, for instance, of the meal that Boaz provided for Ruth when she was gleaning in his field. So he told her she could stay for lunch with the other harvesters. And it says in the Tanakh what he gave her parched corn and vinegar to dip her bread in, on the drink. And why does the Torah tell us the menu? It's enough to say, Atitin lo lecha, that he gave her to eat. The same reason, why does the Torah tell us the menu by Avram Avinu and Sarah with the malachim? That he gave him tongue to eat, and that she baked challah. Who needs that? So that's based on the famous medrash, Ilu Yoda Boaz. If Boaz would have known that the Torah was writing down, the Tanakh was writing down the menu, would have given her, filet mignon and, who knows what, instead of parched corn. So there's a concept, Ilu Yoda. If people would realize that the small things in life are the big things. That's true in a marriage. It's true in raising children. It's true in education, in being a teacher. I say often, I remember the small things about my Rabbi, and I don't remember quite all the great Torah that they taught me. But I remember how they looked and how they behaved. Small things, because there are no small things. That's one of the lessons of the Torah. Torah mitzvahs. That's why it's such a all-encompassing great Torah, because there are no small things. So we have a mitzvah to cover everything. We don't just save ourselves. I'm saving myself for the big thing. I remember that a number of times in my life when I was engaged in raising funds to build buildings, the shul in Miami Beach, and then the shul in Monsey, and the yeshiva in Monsey, and the dormitory. So there always was a Jew that I would come to him and he'd say, Rabbi, I'm going to help you when I'll build the roof. You get up to the roof, then I'll build you. And I was always struck by that kind of psychology. I'm coming to him now. I don't even have the foundation in the ground. I need startup money. He tells me he's going to build me the roof. And he's sincere. He's not trying to get out of it. Because he saves himself for great things, not for small things. But it's the small things that count. Ilu Yodav, we would know that, we would behave so differently. So in any event, Boaz commits himself. He's going to marry Ruth. And he's going to redeem the fields of Elimelech, who's his relative, because that comes along with Ruth. So either the fields come along with her or she comes along with the fields. It depends how you look at it. But there's somebody that has priority over him. There's somebody first. And the man's name is Tov. What a beautiful name. Mr. Goodness. And Boaz approaches him and he tells him the story. Listen, Elimelech died, and these are the fields, and Ruth is his daughter-in-law, and she converted, and she's here. And if you redeem the fields, then you have to redeem her too. And you're first. And you tell me if you're going to do it or not. Originally, Tov is interested because he sees that he has a chance to acquire the fields. But then when he realizes that he has to take Ruth in the bargain, he tells him, I will not redeem Penashris as Nachlosi. Somehow I will destroy my pedigree, my family. I can't do it. So the Tanakh converts his name. He no longer is Tov. He's now Ploni Almoni, Mr. Anonymous. Because that's what happens. When a person doesn't take the opportunity, so then he loses part of his personality. He loses himself. Here's a man that has a chance for greatness. And he says, no, it'll cost me. Because greatness always costs. There's no way to avoid that. So because of that, he becomes Ploni Almoni. He becomes a cipher. He's one of billions of people that inhabit the planet. But he's not important anymore because he made himself unimportant. And Boaz goes through with the deal, and he marries Ruth, and out of them comes the house of David, the eternal future of the Jewish people. This is the most unlikely story in the world. If the Lord wants to create the Messiah, she's not, why, what, her? But that's the other lesson here. We can't second guess heaven. And heaven never does what we think is rational or correct or should be. That's one of the things that it's a pitfall that even great and pious Jews often fall into, is that they speak in the name of heaven. And that is very, very dangerous. Who knows what heaven is? Who knows? Rabos machshovos belevish. We have many, many thoughts, many explanations, many programs. But Batzas Hashem hitakum. The Rebbe Shalom is running the show. And that is a bitter lesson for us. That's one of the lessons that we've just experienced, right? What happened to all of our plans? Everywhere we were going to go and what we were going to do and who we were going to see, and it was all, nothing. The Lord has a purpose. It's not for naught. It's not at random. And that is the story. The final point, when Ruth has the baby, when her son is born, so it says, Atikreno Ashchenos Shem Lemor, the neighbors. Who are the neighbors? The neighbors are the people. You have to always listen. What do the people say? Amud the bar. What do the people say? The Chazal always emphasize that. Mahabrio Somrimov. What do people say? So they said, Yulad ben Naomi. Naomi had the child. No, Naomi didn't have the child. She was not of an age to have children. Physically, she's not the mother. Even biologically, she's not the mother. And none of her genetic code is in the baby. Ruth and Boaz are not hers. But the Tanakh says, Yulad ben Naomi. The people knew that Naomi had the child. If it would have not been for Naomi, there never would have been here. There never would have been a Ruth. There never would have been Oved and Yishai and David. Never would have been any of these things. There never would have been the Jewish future. So there are people in Jewish history all through the ages that are the ones that push it forward, that make a difference. And when heaven comes, so to speak, to assign credit, many times it's the people that we did not know and we do not appreciate, but somehow they're the catalyst for all the greatness that occurs. So all of that is part of the lesson of Matan Torah. The source of energy that continues to allow us to function. And that's what we have to be connected to. So I want to wish you all, my dear friends, a wonderful Yom Tov, Chag Sameach in every respect. And things should continue to improve. And I hope to see you very shortly. And Emir Hashem, we will hear good news from each other always. Stay well and Chag Sameach.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi. It's a big schus for us to have the Rav, and this is an opportunity to say on behalf of the entire Kehillah a good yontiv to Rabbi and a Chag Sameach, and also an opportunity to say thank you to the Rav for all of the Torah that we received from the Rav throughout the entire year, and we should be zocha to be mekabel the Torah panim el panim, without any masach and masechot, without any intermediaries in the middle. And panim el panim, we should be zocha to get the Torah from Rabbi in good health and happiness for many more years here in Yerushalayim. And we look forward to that.
Thank you, Rabbi Tiel, and stay well and kol tuv selah.
Amen. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to unmute everybody right now.